All right, everyone. Hello. Thank you guys for joining us. Please send me a chat if you cannot hear us or if there's any complications. But welcome, everyone. Good morning. My name is Giselle Rodriguez Greenwood. I am the president of the Houston chapter of NAHJ. I'm also editor-in-chief of the Houston Business Journal. Thank you all for joining us, especially on such a monumental day and hour, I will say. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. Anyway, if you're not familiar with NHJ, if you're just joining us, we are an organization that aims to support and advance the careers of Latino journalists in all scopes of their career. So we think today's panel will hopefully help you do that. And just as a reminder, if you're not a member, go to nhj.org. We have several membership options there for professionals as well as students at a discount if you are a student. And also make sure to join us on or follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook under the handle at NAHJ Houston. David Gonzalez of KHOU is our social media manager. You can also reach out to him to get more social details. And you'll also be able to access as a live stream on Facebook Live. So today I'm very, very pleased to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Johanna Chryssikos, president and CEO of Artemis Partners. It's an executive search firm that helps place professionals across a range of industries. And she also just informed me that she has a bit of a journalism background as well. So Johanna, you want to tell the crew a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's a gorgeous day outside, so thanks for joining us. So I started Artemis Partners 6 years ago. I really saw a need in the staffing and recruiting space to make some adjustments and how things were done. What we really try to focus on are candidates. So a lot of the things that we're talking about today are a lot of the conversations that we have on a daily basis with individuals who are looking for new roles, how to reinvent myself, what do I do in a market like right now? So we have a lot of those conversations because, even if they're not a solid fit for maybe a role that we have open, it doesn't mean that they're not later. And we also want to be able to give that value back as well. I mean, spending 10 or 15 minutes with someone, just kind of coming up with a strategy is rewarding on both ends. So we really try to focus on that. And my journalism background is actually my mother, who she also made the transition from journalism into a different career. And I'll talk a little bit about that today as well. I have two beautiful daughters who are freshmen in high school. And I have a sixth grader as well. Big tennis players. They're pretty amazing. They're pretty special to me, but.
Well, great. And thank you for joining us. Also, as just as an aside, it is her birthday. So happy birthday.
I'm 25 again, if anybody is wondering.
Love it. You look great for 25. And
yeah.
So tell us, Johanna, when do you know it's a good time to change careers? Like, what are some red flags that it's time to move on?
It's such a great question. I mean, we talk to so many people and we hear all kinds of things. So, it's either I'm burned out, just the hours don't fit with your personal life anymore. Maybe you're having, you're starting to have children and you're growing your family and it just doesn't work anymore. Maybe you have crazy hours and it doesn't fit. If you no longer feel motivated to get up and go and do that job, you're just kind of like, I'm over it. I'm kind of past this. Or, if you just feel like there's something more you want to do, right? I'm a firm believer that we have to follow our passion. I know at the end of the day, we have to make a paycheck. I completely get that. But there can be a balance. Life is all about balance. And so if we can find where that sits, and it may not be in the space that you're currently in, it may be in a different field. And that's all attainable, but it takes strategy, to make that transition. So we hear a lot of different reasons. I don't feel valued. It could be that that's just the company you're at, that you're
Mhm.
not feeling valued, or it could be the actual space that you're in. I don't feel like there's any more upward momentum for me. Okay, so everybody's situation is different, but we hear all kinds of different stories, and they pretty much all revolve around that.
Okay, okay. And right, well, now especially, we've seen such an attrition in journalism, and for the past 4 years, we've been under attack and like fake news and all that. So, we might, as journalists, we might want to look at expanding our horizons. So, what job roles right now seem like a good fit for current or former journalists?
I love this question because we get to tap into what are the skill sets that you get. So I posted yesterday on LinkedIn. It's a TED talk, and it discusses, not just looking at, okay, what have I done? What roles have I had? But looking at each individual person with the skill sets that they bring to the table. So we highly recommend looking at what have you done, what skill sets do you have, right, that you use every single day in your job. So journalism, you're researching constantly, right? Your work ethic is above and beyond because you all are always having to stay on top of the next story, on top of the next thing, on the top of the next trend, right? So that work ethic is really, really strong. We see that in journalists. So looking at the soft skills, so to speak, of what you have, and how can they transfer into another field. So PR firms right now, we're seeing like small mom and pop PR firms who need extra assistance, either part-time or full-time. We're seeing where communication jobs are opening up. School districts, they are a great place. So let's go back to the whole, maybe you're pulling crazy hours, you're up at 3 a.m. and you're not home until late. Now you're looking at building a family. I mean, education is the perfect spot for that. You get your holidays off with your children as they grow. You can add a lot of world value. In education, it's a closed space, right? So having someone from outside that comes from the business community that
Mhm.
has seen a lot can add a lot of value to the education system or to a district. Looking at roles like that, sales, surprise. The best salespeople are not people necessarily who've been in sales forever. It's do you have the ability to connect with people? And as a journalist, that's what you do all the time.
You're
That
absolutely
that's
right.
what a good yeah, that's what a good salesperson
Yeah.
is someone who can connect with other people. It's not, hey, let me show you my pitch deck and we're going to talk about all the wonderful things I can give you. No, no, no. Right? It's about,
Mhm.
let's build a relationship. Let me do some research on your company. Let me be proactive. That's what a sales job is. That's a great transition. Um, Freelance writing. We see privately held companies who need that kind of stuff all the time. So let's talk about COVID right now. We've seen a lot of marketing positions fall off, right? So individuals who've been in marketing for 10, 15 years have lost their jobs. However,
Mhm.
those companies still need PR. They still need communication. They still need those things, but not necessarily at a full-time rate. So those are areas where you can look into as well.
Right. And so how do you get your foot in the door with some of these, like a sales job, for example?
Yeah, so lots of different ways. I mean, if you use LinkedIn as a platform, highly recommend going under jobs and taking a look at what's out there. You can even put in different keywords and do advanced searches to see, kind of what's going on. Networking. You guys are so accustomed to networking and knowing who's who. Use your
Right.
network. Talk to your network. Hey, Giselle, I'm thinking about getting out. Who do you know? Right?
Right.
And start having those conversations. I highly recommend reaching out to a recruiter. Find out what is going on with them. See if they know of anything that's an opening. Have some strategy calls. Talk about, okay, well, here's what I've done. And then how can that transition into a different type of role, and what type of roles are out there? Find a couple of recruiters to have in your pocket. It's beneficial, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Um,
And like you said, chances are we know the people. It's just we don't think that way.
yeah, yeah, reach out to your network. I mean, I have a group of people that I just constantly reach out to. So if I'm looking to make a change, or go a different direction, or grow a piece of the company, or I'm on the phone with a client and I'm like, how do we break through for them? Like, how do we make this work for them? I'll pick up the phone and make calls and say, hey, let me pick your brain for 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
you'll be surprised at how many people will do that for you. You're not
Yeah.
bothering them. They
Yeah.
they appreciate being thought of.
Good advice. For those of you who just joined us, we're with Johanna Chryssikos of Artemis Partners. She's giving us some great tips on career advancement and how to find a new job. We will be taking questions from the audience towards the end of the panel, so make sure you put them in the chat as we go through. So Johanna, who's hiring journalists right now? Is anyone?
Well, again, looking at the spaces that I mentioned before, PR, communications, freelance, it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that there's a ton of stuff out there, but if you're thinking about transitioning out of journalism, it's a good time to look at that, because there's not a lot of anything out there right now. I mean,
Hmm.
it's pretty sparse, no matter what industry we're looking at. And again, like you said, looking at the last 4 years, and the heat that you guys are getting makes it tough. Um, there's not a lot, but there are people looking. And the other thing, though, to think about is, again, I would recommend going and looking online to see what is available, contact a recruiter, see what's out there. And just because the job role doesn't have, specific, we need a journalist, right? Really read the job descriptions and see, okay, well, does it have a journalistic feel or a spin to it? How can I come into this and show my value as a journalist as well?
Hmm.
Like, marketing firms, everything is online, as we know, so much is available all the time. Marketing firms are always looking for content creators, people who will dig in and do the research. Looking at those types of roles and saying, okay, I mean, let's go back to sales for a marketing firm. You go in and you have all this great background and experience, just kind of putting together your own pitch deck to walk in and say, okay, I know you're not looking for specifically a journalist, but let me show you why you need to hire me, right? Because of this, and this. So there's different ways to go about it, but it's the whole market's pretty sparse right now. So
Right. And you mentioned highlighting certain things. So what should journalists highlight in their resume or in their skills?
well, first start with the job description. So look at what it is that they need. Remember, you're trying to find a fit for you and for them. Otherwise, it's not going to be a good match. So really go through the job description and read the pieces of it, and really focus on what we call the soft skills or the behavioral skills. Again, back to, you're great at research. You're very good at connecting with people, having conversations, asking questions. I mean, we underutilize questions in the business space, right? So like, if you're in a meeting, people don't usually tend to ask questions, they tend to talk, right?
Hmm.
But you guys are so well versed at asking the right questions to get the information that you need. That's a huge benefit and a huge value, really, in any role. So, looking at those types of things and saying, okay, well, what have I done that fits this, right? That is a good connection to this.
Hmm.
Starting there is huge, and it's going to be role by role. That we get a lot of times these cookie cutter, resumes, and it's like, okay, did you know what you were applying for? Like,
Right.
was your resume doesn't match anything. And we even look at soft skills first. we don't even look at background first. We look at soft skills first, right? Like,
Yeah.
what do you have in your background that is transferable?
Right.
But still, if you're not targeting the right audience, and look, it takes a little extra time. It takes, being prepared and having a strategy going in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the same applies, I guess. I know we've been talking about going outside of the industry, but even within this industry, those same principles apply, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
to know who you're applying to and what their mission is, and whether or not it aligns.
That's right. And making a connection with someone in the organization can be huge. Again, you guys have a good network, using that resource. Hey, Giselle, do you know somebody at XYZ company? Do to connect you? Those personal recommendations are huge, right? They're so
Right.
much more valuable than just sending your resume in and saying, oh, I hope somebody reads my resume. We
Right.
get 4, 5, 800 resumes per job. And the candidates that stick out for us are the ones who reach out and send a personal note, or they actually go above and beyond and they connect with somebody else in our network, right? And then come through that channel. And I'll take that referral every day of the week,
Right.
right?
Right.
Before my chances of, well, I don't know. I don't know much about this person.
Yeah.
So using your resources, using your network, reaching out, making yourself stand out more than just, oh, I sent a resume in. And I know you can get online and find so many jobs and you're like, I'm just going to, send a batch of them.
Right.
I don't recommend that. I don't.
Okay. Okay. What about for new grads or students that are about to enter the workforce who may not have that network? What do you recommend for them?
So I had this conversation with a client the other day. He called and said, my daughter just graduated. She is jobless. What do I do?
Yeah.
With a journalism degree, all of that. So it
Oh,
was
they're
fun.
still handing those out? That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But she, anyway, so the advice for that for young grads would be, obviously, again, network, use your resources of people that you know. Um, Finding a job is going to be hard right now. It may be that you have to do something else that has some type of connection with journalism or communications that will at least give you the experience to have under your belt. So, example, if I want to work for the HVJ, right? But I go off and I am working for a nonprofit organization, but I'm not doing anything with communications, nothing. There's not a lot of transfer there
Mhm.
because number one, we're looking at nonprofit versus business, and then we're looking at nothing that pertains to journalism itself. So that's very difficult. But if I'm looking at working, for again for the HBJ, but I'm working as a marketing assistant or an intern with a company that needs marketing help. Again, remember, those marketing roles are kind of have gone off since COVID, but those companies still need help. They still need things produced. So even if you're only in there part time, at least you're getting that experience. And
Mhm.
again, with anything that has a transferable skill, you'll have to sell it more later, but
Right.
at least you're getting the experience. I mean, our new grads are having a tough time right now.
Yeah.
Internships are out there, um, and paid ones, and looking that route. And I hate to say it, but our new grads are going to kind of have to pay their dues over
Yeah.
the next year.
Yeah. And it seems like this is a good time too for the resume to highlight those soft skills that you mentioned before, especially if you're doing something that's not in journalism.
Yeah.
Because I know as a hiring manager, if I see something that's not in journalism, I look to see what the skills are that would apply to a reporter position or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. That's a great
yeah.
example.
So let's say you are a young grad, you just got a job, you landed it. Um, how do you know how much to ask for in terms of salary?
Research.
Hmm.
Do your research. Call your connections. Hey, what is your company paying? What is your organization doing? Look online. There are so many resources because it's going to change, right? It's gonna flux depending on the industry and what your role is.
Hmm.
Talk to some HR professionals that are handling individuals and employees. They're doing the same role that you are. LinkedIn is an amazing platform. Connect with someone and say, hey, I'm new. Just lay it out there. Honesty
Right.
is always the best policy, right? I'm a new grad. I'm looking for a job. What are you guys paying right now? Like, what should I be looking for? Just asking those questions. Again, reach out to a recruiter, see what they can find out for you. And it's
Yeah.
also going to depend on the company as well. Are they hurting right now? What's going on with them financially? How much can they afford to bring
Right.
somebody on? Is there potential? Let's say you're getting in and you're like, oh, it's a great job, this would be perfect, but the salary is like 20,000 less than I really wanted. Take it. Take it. Right?
Okay.
Get in the door. And you can set that expectation in your interview. You know, I hate to tell you guys this, but people who are interviewing candidates, they want to know what your goals are, not just, I want to grow as a professional.
Right.
Okay, we all do, right? But
Yeah.
what is your goal specifically to that role and to that company? Well, I want to be here now, and in a year or two, I would really like to take over this, or I would really like to have experience working with whatever it is, right? So just setting the expectations up front. I don't think that we do that enough. We talk to candidates all the time. When you go into an interview, you both the interviewer and the interviewee are both on the spot. You
Hmm.
have to remember that the people who are interviewing don't do this on a daily basis unless they are like a talent acquisition or HR, but you know, they don't do it on a daily basis. So to give them a little bit of help, to let them learn you, there's nothing wrong with that. They want to hear that. You
Yeah.
have to pitch yourself. And,
Yep.
as a journalist, you should be very good at
Right. And
that.
I will also tell you, you're absolutely right. As an editor or a news producer, they're busy. I guarantee you, 2 minutes before that interview, they maybe glanced over your resume for a second and that was it.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah.
know.
So,
Yeah.
nail down your elevator pitch.
Yeah, exactly. What value do you bring to the company? Because
Right.
you're right. If you're interviewing with an executive, they have probably most likely just run out of a meeting that ran over, right?
Hmm.
How many times have you been to an interview where they're late? Well, their meeting probably ran over. Mind is still spinning on that. So, how do you get them connected to you now, right? So
Right.
that they see your value. It's just really, it's all about human connection. And as a journalist, you guys are very, very good at that. How do you get that person's where their thoughts are rewired to get to where you are right there in that
Yeah.
moment? And you do that by saying, you know this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'd like to do, here's where I see value in this role, and I see value in this role because it's going to get me to where I want to be, because this is where I want to be.
Right.
um that's invaluable to people. I mean, to know that, oh, okay, this person has goals, and they companies want to know that you're going to stick around, that
Yes.
you want to be
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
They're going to train you. They're going to spend money on you.
Right.
People know that.
Yeah. So, do you have any online resources for salary research?
It's all over. I mean, your best bet is really to use your network,
Okay.
especially right now, because you're going to find everything all over the place. We have HR specialists that will call us and say, okay, we're hiring for this role, but we don't know what to pay. Well, and it
Hmm.
depends on how necessary that role is. Sometimes we'll say, well, you know, how much value is this person going to bring? You might want to just start there, and
Okay.
stay within kind of the average, because some roles we're looking at 100 $100,000 to 250,000 based on experience. So,
Yeah.
it fluctuates a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And
really
I
network.
yeah, and I'll put one out there actually in the chat. It's LinkedIn for journalists. If you're
Yeah,
not a
that's cool.
part, yeah, if you're not a part of that little committee or that little group on LinkedIn, I highly, highly recommend it. They also hold informational webinars for journalists and things like that. But it's a great place to get started in terms of doing research for salary and jobs and that sort of thing. Um, okay, so back to the salary thing. How do you prevent yourself from being priced out or undervalued?
Again, it's going in with what is your value, right? That's how you avoid that. Again, right now it's very tough though, because some companies just can't meet where you think your value is. You
Hmm.
just can't. So it's understanding where they're coming from and them understanding your value. It's a balance. And you can figure that out pretty quick by when you go into the interview asking, how is the business doing? What hurdles have they seen throughout, the last 10 months? Asking questions that allow the person who's interviewing you to talk.
Hmm.
As you know, you ask the question and you let the person talk.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing at that. And you just use that same skill set, right? You use the same skill set that you would when you're interviewing someone. So just taking that so you can understand where the company is coming from. That will
Hmm.
also give you a good feel of, okay, well, I told them I need X amount or I'm looking for X amount. That will give you a good feel when you leave the room of, okay, well, I think they can probably match that, or it sounds to me like they're really struggling, they're probably not going to be able to.
Hmm.
you know um Again, it's setting expectations as well when you're in the interview. Some people have this, they get kind of uh squirmy when we ask, well, what compensation are you looking for? And they hate answering that question.
And the
Well,
worst answer is, well, whatever the job role entails, or
yeah. Yeah, and as a human, we don't want to undervalue ourselves or price ourselves out. So
right.
doing that research, asking the questions, but then going in with a number. And you can say things like, I would like my total compensation to be X amount,
Hmm.
because that will help them also think, okay, well, good. So we could do a base of this, which is straight out of our pocket. Plus, we could do a bonus or a comp, as well on top of it, and maybe some stock. Like
Hmm.
we really like this person, we really want them on board, but because they said their total comp is X, we can get there by these various channels.
Right.
Don't go in and say, I need my base to be X. What do you want as a whole? Because that gives them more options and lets them
Right.
know that you're open to looking at other ways of making that monetary return.
Right. And we did have a question. Is saying your salary is negotiable a bad thing, or should you always go in with a number?
Saying your salary is negotiable to a recruiter is perfectly fine, because that's what your recruiter should be doing. Your recruiter should be working with the client or the company to figure out, okay, well, how much do you love Susie? Right?
Hmm.
We know where she is, and they have those conversations. When you're going in and you're not using your recruiter and you're just going in to have the conversation, you can say it's negotiable, but you have to be very careful with that. If you want to say it's negotiable, say, I'm negotiable. However, I can't be below X.
Right.
And within a year, I would like to have additional responsibilities. Like, again, you have to lay it out for the individual who's interviewing you so they can have their wheels spin of, okay, so here's where this person needs to be. Okay, here are some options we can pull in. But going in with that strategy is going to be huge for you. You're going in to negotiate this role and to sell yourself. and to help that person understand your value. As a journalist, that should be an extremely natural skill set that you have. So, I mean, you
But
should
it's
not
funny,
struggle with that. Yeah.
right? But it's real, as journalists, it's really hard to sell ourselves. We're, as an industry, we're so focused on the other person that when it comes to people asking us questions, we're like deer in headlights.
Okay. So, and I didn't even think about that. And that makes so much sense. So having, again, a conversation with someone, reaching out to a couple of recruiters and getting some advice. Because what we're doing is we're looking at you from the outside.
Mhm.
You're looking at yourself internally, like you just said. Okay, we're so busy and focused on everybody else that we're not really looking at ourselves. So having even a friend, get a friend to say, okay, where do you see my value? You know what I do. Getting kind of that outside feedback, and then really looking within. Also, another good thing is to do some type of behavioral assessment on yourself. There are resources online. You can always reach out to me. I can send you some links of things that you can do, but that will also help you get an idea of, oh, wow, I forgot
Yeah.
that I'm really good at that. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are eye
absolutely.
opening at times.
Right, right. Let's see. When negotiating, do you need to get these agreements on salary, schedule, et cetera, on paper? Do you need to start a paper trail, or is verbal okay? Um, what, how do you solidify these promises once the job starts?
Yeah, get it in writing. I mean, a
Hmm.
verbal is great to have the conversation begin and to roll forward, but you want everything in writing. We all, want to take individuals' words and, be able to hook onto them. And it's exciting when we get the offer that we were looking for. But, just like in sales, don't get excited until the ink is dry.
Yeah.
Um,
And I know it can be super uncomfortable to ask that question, especially if you're interviewing with a small news organization or something. What's the best way to word it?
well, yeah, I mean, it's that fine line of how do I ask for what I need again?
Mhm.
Like you've already told me, but then how do I come back and you know what you're doing when you come back in to solidify that you need something in writing. Think about it this way: you're not asking them to give you something, you're showing them that you have value, because the fact that you're coming in and you're being proactive and asking and you want to verify, that shows two things. Okay, well, this person definitely isn't going to step away from anything, which is great, and they want to verify all information. That's what is coming across. It's not that you're asking again for something in writing.
Right.
We feel that way as a human naturally. I'm asking for something, I'm putting a burden on someone. You're not. The person
Hmm.
on the other end should expect that you want something in writing. And if they're dragging you along and they're not getting it, then it's time to move on to the next role,
Yeah, it's a red
because
flag.
that is going to be an organization that will never follow up. If they're not
Hmm.
following up at the beginning, now granted, with COVID, I'm going to tell you, companies are slower than ever to get things done. You got to have a little bit of patience right now. But if you're getting the kind of pushback of, oh, well, why don't we have you start on Monday and then we'll get you the official letter in a few weeks? That's tricky.
Hmm.
And that sends red flags up for me, saying, okay, well, that's not very official for me. And it's okay for you to say that in a, obviously, a, you know, not so direct or um, condescending way, but
Right.
you can get that message across.
Okay. So let's say you love your job. You've been at it for a while. Uh, is now a good time to negotiate a pay increase? How is that going to work during this pandemic?
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, right now it's a company by company basis. How's your company doing? You
Hmm.
know, did you guys just do layoffs? Then the answer is no, no, no. Now, what you can do is start setting the expectation that you're going to ask for an increase. So even if the company is struggling or you guys are just kind of holding on, and maintaining, business owners are really having to do a lot of extra work right now at making sure that they can sustain and they can keep you safe from having to let you go or furlough you. So that is their number one goal right now. So it is it's difficult to go in and ask for an increase. But again, you can go in and say, look, I know things are tough right now. I love being here, whatever, whatever. But I want you to know that here's my goal in the next year, 6 months, 2 years, whatever that happens to be. And here's where I would like to be salary wise. That is perfectly fine because management should understand and value that you're coming ahead of time.
Hmm.
Again, that's case by case though too. If you have one of those, tricky managers that just really don't want to listen, then that's going to be tough and you should probably look to go somewhere else to get that pay increase. But if you have a good rapport, um, and just setting the expectation of what you're wanting down the line, that's a good thing, because then they're
Yeah.
going to look at that in their projections. But again, you got to be careful. It depends on what's happening with the
Yeah, so be
company.
aware. And I know we have a lot of broadcast reporters listening, so a lot of them are on contract. Um, I would suggest not waiting until the end of your contract to negotiate that salary. Maybe look at it halfway through and talk to your, use producer, your boss, and just say, I want to do like a midterm review and see where I stand. I want to know if I'm meeting your expectations, and then I want to tell you about my expectations as well.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah. So, what about skills right now? Let's say you're in between jobs, or again, you're looking to move up. What are some ways to keep those skills sharp or to learn new things right now?
Oh, I mean, there's so many resources online to, doing an online class, picking up a book, reading something. Again, if you're staying in the field, obviously focusing on that. But let's say that you are looking to transition, picking up books on that topic. Look for recommendations. Post something on Facebook. Hey guys, looking for recommendations with whatever. I mean, you'll be amazed at how many things you get. Talk to some other professionals, but definitely read up, take some online courses. Doing some charity work is
Yeah,
good because not only are you giving back, but you're also connecting with other people. Again, using that network. Your network wants to help you. Don't think of your network as, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to reach out to Giselle because I know she's busy. But your network wants to help you. They
right.
want to be there for you. Um, so, take advantage of it. I mean,
Yeah,
you do when it comes to researching a story,
right.
right? So use it for your own personal as well. So yeah, so reading up on new topics, online classes, networking. Um, you can even put together like a small group, especially now that we're socially distancing, but setting up a Zoom call once a week, create your own little network, your own little board of trustees where you
Hmm.
guys get on and talk once a week, and you talk about what you're seeing in the market, things that are going on. You come up with a topic and someone is in charge of, talking about it, right? I mean, there are so many different ways to do that, but using the other humans in your life to connect and pull those pieces together, we undervalue that a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And we are in the industry of relationships and
You
getting
are,
to
but
know people.
yeah, but like you said, we don't, you don't think about it that way,
Right.
right? Just, I need it, it's a different kind of information you're looking
Yeah.
for. Yeah.
And in that same vein, I would also suggest if you're like a younger reporter or journalist, you know, tap into an older journalist or as a mentor. or maybe they can put you in touch with other people as well, because their network might be more robust.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
especially if they're established. I mean, they can tell you the ins and the outs and what to do, what not to do.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and I will be more than happy. I'm putting myself out there to help anybody with like interviewing skills or resume, stuff as well. Um, And there's also a Facebook page for journalists. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of stuff out there. Sometimes it's not very active because we get, we're in sweep season or we get super busy, but it's out there. So, all right. Does anybody else have any other questions at this time? Get them in. Okay, so back to the more seasoned reporter thing. Eh, we kind of talked about like how do you know when it's time, but how do you know when it's time to move up?
Well, I mean, you know, you have to look at your track record. What have you done? What have you accomplished? Where is your value, especially to the organization you're in at the moment? Looking around at, okay, well, is there something more that I can be doing? What have I done? What do I still have left to do? That's, I mean, geez, that's, you know, what are your individual goals? Where do you want to be? Looking at all those pieces to decide, okay, it's time for me to move up. I mean, you've got some individuals who, have a lot of experience and been there, done that, and they're good. They're like, this
Mhm.
is perfect. Right. So, and that's good for that individual. But if you are looking to continue to climb the ladder, I mean, doing the research around, okay, well, what do I need to have under my belt to be at that level? Like looking at the other, let's say you want to become an exec. Well, what's their background? What have they done to get to that point? You talking to them as a mentor,
Mhm.
that again, using that resource, and just knowing that that is your goal and that's where you're trying to reach next. I mean, I'm sick of doing this. I'm ready to kind of run the show. And how do I get there?
Yeah, yeah. Again, communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. LinkedIn has this open to work thing that you can put out there on your profile picture. I don't know if you've seen it.
Mhm.
What are the pros and cons to using this?
That is a pro. It is great. I mean, as a recruiter, when we are looking for candidates, and let's say that we're looking what we call a purple unicorn, right? Someone that's got just, we're not necessarily looking for, okay, you've done this thing all this time, but we're looking for different skill sets and backgrounds. Maybe we're looking for someone with a psychology degree that, has certain pieces to what we're looking for. We can go out and then search for those individuals. But the ones that have open for network, we know that we are reaching out and they're open to it. But here's the caveat: if you have open to new opportunities on there, please be sure that you're on your LinkedIn twice a day, checking your inbox. And it
Hmm.
could be that you go a whole month or two and nothing comes in, but the one day that you don't check, someone has sent you something and it's going to be urgent and it's going to be quick.
Yeah.
So if you want to be have an open network, I mean, but you've got to check. You've got to see, if someone's reaching out to you to offer you something, that you can be available for. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking, put it out there.
Okay. Is it worth leaving a job slash market slash city that you're happy in to continue climbing the ladder? Because sometimes moving to a bigger city means making more money. And what if that job turns out to be awful? So what do you think?
Yeah, that's the chance you take. I mean, we all are in that seat. When you're moving to grow and to make more money, and you're completely moving from one city to the other, I mean, that is a risk. What you can do again is going back to that interview process, asking the right questions that will help you understand the culture that you're walking into. um, I highly recommend two interviews. you can suggest that you would like a second interview with maybe the other team to get a feel for them as well. The fact that you're saying, I want to make sure I'm a good fit here is not a bad thing. It's
Mhm.
not, because again, they are spending money on you to come in, and especially if they're looking at transferring you and paying for all of your relocation. y- it's not a bad question, but doing the research, asking the right questions so that you don't walk into a mess of a situation.
Mhm.
Just being proactive, using your journalistic skills to dive a little deeper and
Yeah.
see what that job is all about. I'm all about opportunity. Where is the opportunity? But also having the facts behind it is really important, because especially if you have a family, moving everybody, and but just being prepared and ask other people what they know
Mhm.
about the organization. Look on LinkedIn, who's connected to that organization or someone in it, and just have a conversation. Hey, what do you know about, look on Glassdoor, look at reviews there. I mean, just ask the right questions, because
Yeah.
that's
And
the
I
thing.
would Right. And I would even go a step further and maybe rent an Airbnb out for a long weekend and just kind of comb the city. If it's brand new to you, just walk around and see what the culture is like. Because it's really hard to tell what a new city is like if you've never been there.
That is great advice. Yes.
Yeah. So, alongside the culture question, is there one key question as a job candidate that we should be asking?
What is it that you are looking for in this role? What do you need this role to accomplish? Something along those lines. And
Okay.
I would ask it at the beginning. And what you do is you go in and say, okay, well, I had a conversation with HR, or I've read the job description. I understand everything that you're looking for, but I would like to understand from your point of view what it is that you need this person to do in this role. What do you need to have accomplished? Because again, you have to remember, the person that's sitting on the other side does not interview most likely every day of the week. Is not their job, again, unless it's talent acquisition or HR. But if it's an exec or someone else, a hiring manager that's interviewing you, they don't do this all the time.
Hmm.
So asking that open-ended question and allowing them to talk about, oh, okay, well, the last person didn't do this, so we really need to be here, we really need to accomplish these things. Or even asking that, is this a new role, if you don't already know? What were some of the issues that you guys had in the role previously that you really need me to come in and make adjustments in? But
Hmm.
those are really the best questions. Just, what is it that you need? What
Yeah.
do you need? I saw the job description, it's great, I'm a fit. What do you need? And let them talk.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's great. Let's see. We got one question. You mentioned cookie cutter resumes are a no-no. Should you redo your resume every time or reflect the job description skills that you have in your letter? Are you able to, and also, are you able to share one of those personality tests? But let's start with the resume. So,
Yeah.
how do you make your resume stand out? And is it the resume
So,
versus cover letter? I mean,
yeah, I mean, cover letters, in the recruiting space, they're going away. We don't
yeah.
have time. Like, it just, if a company is using a recruiter to vet through, we don't have time to read the cover letters. What we're going straight to is the resume. Do I still recommend putting a cover letter in? Yes, it's not going to hurt anything. It's not
Hmm.
going to hurt you. And it's there, for them to go, okay, well, let's read a little bit more about this person. So it's not a bad thing. In regards to um, specifically redoing your resume every time, no, I don't recommend that. Like you said, go in and look at the job, look at the role, what they're looking for. And then at the top section, make sure you include those skill sets, those soft skills at the top so they can see it. Or maybe even a small paragraph that focuses on the job role and what they're looking for. That, fixing a small paragraph, a 3 sentence paragraph, is a lot easier than redoing a cover letter
Right.
every single time, or redoing your whole resume. But again, just pulling out those key pieces that they need in the role and making sure they're in there. I can't tell you the number of times, like we'll look at a resume and we'll say, okay, this person should be a good fit, but I'm not seeing these key pieces. So then we get on the phone with them and, have you done these things? And they say, oh yeah, I've done it. I've even done, and it's like, okay, that needs to be on your resume. Those are huge pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really big pieces. So just make sure it's included on your resume.
Yeah. And what about that extracurricular stuff too? Like, let's say you're involved with the SPCA. Should you include things like that?
Yes, because that helps the hiring manager or recruiter learn you. My favorite was we were looking for a sales manager and we had all these resumes. This one resume stood out to me. So, former NFL football player, skydiver,
Oh my God.
loves skydiving. So, what does that tell me about that person? Teamwork, tenacity, grind, 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 right?
And
And
no fear.
no fear. They don't mind taking risk. I learned all those things just by reading those two lines. So, yes, please include that kind of stuff because it helps. You are
Yeah.
a person on the other end of that resume. You are not a robot. And it really helps kind of fill you out as a person and look at, okay, well, wow, we have 3 other skydivers in our group, or, things like that. Former military, you know, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Talk about being dedicated and driven and, on top of your game.
Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
Great. Let's see. How long should a resume be? 1 page or 2?
2 pages is perfectly fine. It's
Okay.
fine. Here's the deal. You want to get across what you've done. Um, you know, Again, I know there are some systems that when you have a longer resume, it kind of boots you out. But again, if you're connecting with individuals within the organization to get your resume in, that's not a problem.
Mhm.
But 2 pages is perfectly fine. Again, we need to know what you're doing. The resumes that I cannot stand to see are the ones that are really hot right now, and they drive me up a wall because they had this beautiful border and they have their name, and there's not enough information on them, and they're 1 page and there's not enough information at all. And it's
Mhm.
very, what I call, marketing sounding. It's just very cookie cutter, it's just very marketing and full of fluff. And it's like, okay, but what did you do?
Right. Right.
Did you run a team? Did were you making calls all day long? Were you out? Just what was really happening here? I can't really tell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you want to make sure that, think about the things that you value in your role. They're going to help you with the next role, and make sure those pieces are on there. If it's something that's really doesn't matter, filed XYZ and did, it doesn't really matter to the job, then that's the kind of stuff you can leave off that will condense it. But
Right, right. And if you're like a new student or a new grad, do you want to keep those like retail positions in there, or do you want to highlight your classes? What would you recommend there?
keep the retail on there. That shows us you have work ethic. You worked in college, right? You know how to work. You worked while you were going to school. Depending on what the role was, let's say that you were a waiter or a waitress. That's sales right there. That's people interaction. That
Mhm.
tells me that you dealt with all kinds of people
Oh yeah.
every right every single day. And that's big. Yeah, definitely put that on there. Classes are not, I mean, they're okay. I would highlight just the key ones, like the key components that would match the role.
Hmm.
But those past jobs, lifeguard, whatever it happens to be, organizations, community service, any of those things that you've done to give back or add value or you've learned from need to be on there.
Yeah, and I will say too, if you worked at your college paper or your college, station, definitely put that on there and what you've done specifically in that role.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, and so these personality tests that you talked about, is there a place where we can check it out, like where we can see um, how psycho we are?
Oh, they're so much fun. They are so much fun. So the one that we highly recommend is Predictive Index.
Okay.
So you can look it up online, go on, there's just put in Predictive Index. And what I like about it is it takes 5, maybe 7 minutes to take. And then you get the results. You're going to go, what? So we tell everybody, get a glass of wine or, sit down with some tea and your friends or your partner or whatever and, go through it. You're going to get some great laughs, but it's very, very accurate. And it's eye opening too. So, like I looked at my profile. Actually, I had a client and he said, okay, well, I have a profile assessment and you have a profile assessment. You do yours or you do mine and I'll do yours. I'm like, oh, great. Here's a new client of mine and they want to do a profile on me.
Mhm.
It was comical because we got on the phone and started walking through these profiles. And the first thing he said was, I had no idea you were such an introvert. I'm a
Wow,
total introvert, but I love people,
that's
right?
crazy.
So it's like, so you learn things like that about yourself. I had never thought about that. You're right. Like
Yeah.
COVID hasn't affected me at all. I'm fine. I get to sit in with people all day. It's great, but not going to restaurants and doing all that hasn't bothered me one bit.
Mhm.
So it kind of shows you those pieces of yourself. They're like, oh wow, I never even thought about that before.
And so
And
what do you
it's
do
also
with that
good to have
information?
it's also good to be able to send in with an application as well, because it
Oh,
helps them
interesting.
understand you. Oh, we do it all the time.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what do you do with that information then?
Uh, would you like us as recruiters or
No, no, no. Like if I'm gonna apply for a new job.
pull out the behavioral pieces for your soft skills? It's going to
Okay.
tell you, driven, uh, doesn't let um, things bother them, right? Doesn't have to follow rules. It's going to show you like all these things. What I mean by like it, like doesn't have to or doesn't like to be micromanaged. Well, you can turn that into um, intrinsically motivated,
Mhm.
right? Because someone who doesn't want, or doesn't need anybody to manage them is intrinsically motivated. So you can pull pieces out that help build out your resume. And it's also great to be able to pull into your conversation as well. So, and if you're comfortable sending it in with your application, that just shows that you're very proactive. You want them to understand you going in because, again, you don't want to be there if it's not going to be a good fit for you. If we're looking for something immediate, we're doing some part-time work, some freelance, some contract work, that's a totally different scenario. But if we're
Mhm.
looking that we want to be in this one organization for a while and we really want to move up, then it just shows that you're being proactive with your interview experience and makes you stand out. You
That's
know,
interesting.
yeah. Like I'm a strategist, you know, salespeople are usually mavericks, and strategists, but it just,
Mhm.
when you see that on a resume, you're like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
It's
And
great.
it's
I already
funny.
know.
It's interesting you should say that because actually at the HBJ we do use a personality test to see if there's certain skills that align with our goals as a news organization.
Yeah.
Um, so you're right. It's really interesting. All
Yeah.
right. Does
That's
anybody
huge.
have? Yeah, yeah. Any more questions from you guys? You have 1 minute to get them in.
Deadline,
Oh,
deadline.
yeah, exactly. Deadline driven is a great personality skill to have. I'm just putting it out there.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Well, guys, that's about all the time we have. Johanna, thank you so much again for your time and for being with us and giving us your insights. If there's any other questions, I will forward them to you. But thank you all attendees for coming. Let's see. You mentioned candidates that stand out to you are the ones that reach out. What if it says don't contact?
Well, then don't contact. Find somebody in the network that will contact for you, right? Go around it. Just don't take the word no. You guys are good at that. Don't take the word no. Okay, so they tell me I can't reach out. That's fine, whatever. I'll go around it. Who do I have in my network that can get me in the door, or who can, put my name out there, or who could send an email? I mean, just go around it. Figure out a different way.
Yeah. And then look at your LinkedIn network and just say, hey, just FYI, I applied for this job. It's sometimes as simple as that.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
We make it too complicated, Giselle.
we do.
Way too complicated. It's all, go back to the basics of human nature every day of the week. Keep it simple is a great strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Johanna, thank you again. Thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully you learned some really good stuff today. Again, if you have any questions for her, feel free to put them in the chat or email me at giselle.greenwood@gmail.com, and I will forward them on. But everyone have a great afternoon. Thank you so much. Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.